I just want to pay tribute to Bournemouth, actually. There's a clear sense of incredible dynamism and drive and enthusiasm and commitment for internationalisation here, and it was Sanal's persuasive character that got me down here very quickly after a trip around the world and a huge workload, so huge credit to Bournemouth. So it's my job to basically reduce... Sorry, let's just get to the... I'm going backwards, I've got it upside down. It's basically my role to reduce all the wonderful, intangible, immeasurable, life-changing, paradigm-shifting things you do, to reduce them all down to a single number, which is kind of makes me a particularly unpopular person in many parts of the world. So I hope there'll be no spitting and no stamping during this session. I am a ranker. I reduce universities to rank lists. They're highly controversial. But I think that rankings do tell us something about the world we're in, and I think one of the most important things for my session now is to press home how important internationalisation is to excellence. You can't have excellent universities and an excellent student experience without being truly international, and I believe that passionately, and I think the data proves it. So we've been publishing the world rankings since 2004. They've become a ridiculously mad global phenomenon. The world's gone rankings mad, but I think that tells you that universities are inherently global. We have about 1,300 social media posts on the day the rankings come out, 2,500 plus media stories, and there's some research that suggests that the Times Higher Education rankings are touching 689 million people. I find that slightly hard to believe, but this is research by a company called Meltwater. The reach is huge. The parents, the families, the students who are looking at these things through social media, through traditional media, through Times Higher Education's own site, is absolutely extraordinary. They've become hugely influential. Why? What the hell is driving this? Well, this is a comment from Ben Waldowski, who invented the US News and World Report rankings. He talked about rankings man. We need to go far back into human history, to the Caveman era. We must never forget that Homo sapiens is a tribal primate. We love pecking orders that help us understand who's up, who's down, and where we stand ourselves. This is why, somewhere in the mists of time, Rankings Man was born. And this is the current iteration of Rankings Man. It's the University Vice-Chancellor who pretends not to care, desperately searching to find out where his university is in the ranking list. So in terms of Times Higher Education's own influence here, we have about 5 million people come to the site when we released the rankings in September, about 28 million people coming to the site across the year. Who are the stakeholders? Well, we believe that we have institutions at the heart of our audience. We have the university leader. This is Steve Smith from Exeter, not too far away. He talks about how the rankings have been built into his KPIs by his governing body. We're creating the data that help universities understand themselves. The university strategist, this is Lydia Snova from MIT, who's using our rankings data to help understand the world. And the really lovely thing about this, and it's really part of my sense of our mission statement, is that we're doing something that no one else is doing. We're collecting data that actually exists nowhere else. We're collecting globally comparable data that allows universities to compare themselves globally in a way that's never been made possible. It's a really exciting project. We have the policy analysts, the OECD, these types of people, and the occasional president of major economies. This is me and the president of India at his palace, the Rashtrapati Bhavan in Delhi, presenting our emerging economies ranking. So really there's huge numbers of stakeholders, but we have to remember the most important stakeholder, of course, is the student. Student numbers are exploding globally. There's about 4.5 million internationally mobile students today. It's been growing and growing. The predictions are that it'll hit about 8 million. And of course, university provision is exploding globally to well over 200 million. And 1 in 3 of these students are using the THE rankings to understand and help make the most important decision of their life, where to study in their universities. So we have to build these rankings on very strong foundations. We're looking at an awful lot of data. We have these 3 major data sets. We look at bibliometrics. We're studying about 51 million citations to just around 12 million research publications. When we look at reputation data, we're looking at about 250,000 data points from about 20,000 individual academics around the world collecting reputational information on people. And the database that Lydia Snowder talked about that Times Higher Education is building, we've got around about 500,000 data points. We've just added another 500,000 data points in the last couple of months because we've closed data collection for the 2018 rankings. And this all comes together to produce the World University Rankings, we have about 1,300 institutions in our database, so that's growing. So how does this all come together? Well, I'm going to try and illustrate that by showing you a first example of what is now known as a Sankey diagram. This actually shows you Napoleon's march on Russia. It's the first use of this data visualization that's now known as the Sankey diagram. This is a guy called Maynard. And when I was getting an education from our data director and our data analytics team, this is the first thing they showed us about how to visualize data successfully. What you can see from the thickness of the line is actually the size of Napoleon's army. And the army gets smaller and smaller as he reaches Moscow, and then it gets tiny as he retreats back into humiliation and is left with one man and a horse. But you've also got latitude and longitude on there. You've got the temperature. I think we can safely say it was very, very cold. But I'm only showing you this because this is how we visualize our rankings. This is how we show the methodology of our rankings. This is a Sankey diagram. The thickness of the line shows the weight that we give to the methodology, to the data points. Those 3 data sources there, moving into 13 separate performance indicators, which we bundle into 5 core pillars of activity. The most comprehensive, the most balanced system, teaching, research, knowledge transfer. But there are 3 very small indicators I wanted to focus on and highlight now, and they are these 3, the international outlook pillars. They're only worth 2.5% of the ranking, each 7.5% overall. They're a very low weighted element, but I would say these are the heart of the rankings, the secret of success in higher education. Why is that? Well, here's a comment from Lino, the president of ETH Zurich, the most international university in the world. I know of no top university that does not have a substantial percentage of its faculty, students and workforce that are international. It's simply not possible to achieve high levels of excellence without being open to the world. Similar sentiments expressed by Alice Gast, the president of Imperial. I don't believe you can be a great university unless you are global in your approach, and huge credit to BU for taking that global approach. Some evidence. This is a slide provided to me by Elsevier. It's our bibliometric analysis. We can see at the horizontal axis, this is citation impact. So the quality and reach of the research, how many times it's cited, and the vertical axis is the average rates of collaboration. These are nations, and you can see a very clear correlation between the more international that research is and the more highly cited the research is. It's clear evidence that international collaborative research has a wider reach, a wider impact, and a higher influence on rankings. This is a slide which just shows you individual universities in Asia, rapidly internationalizing universities in Asia. The blue is the citation impact of all of their work, and the orange is the citation impact of their international work. Internationally collaborative research is higher impact, more effective, and more powerful, and I believe that passionately, and we're applying that to the global grand challenges. So we published the world rankings in September. The top 10 is an extremely predictable affair, almost boring in its predictability. Oxford and Cambridge are up there, Imperial's there, Stanford, Harvard, Caltech, the usual suspects. But I think the story of the rankings really was the rise of Asia. We had China's universities continuing to make incredible progress based on a commitment by the government to investing in the knowledge economy. We have 4 mainland Chinese universities in the world top 200. We have 5 Hong Kong institutions. Singapore, National University of Singapore is the #1 in Asia. And we're seeing some really significant change there. In the interest of time, I won't dwell too much on some of these slides, but that's a summary of the universities and countries represented in the top 200. But guess what? The top institutions by region are all highly, highly international. The average top 200 university, that white column, has around 20% of its faculty from the international community, 20% or so of its students from the international community. And you can see there in yellow, the University of Singapore, incredibly global in its faculty. It has to rely on international talent for its success. It's the #1 university in Asia. You see the blue is Melbourne, the green is Oxford. They are very, very international, and that's fundamental to their success. But looking across the entire database, the hundreds of thousands of data points that Times Higher Education collects, we're able to get a really interesting picture of what the world looks like. Does anyone here know what box and whiskers plot is? I'm a journalist, I'm not a statistician, so I needed a lesson in what a box and whiskers plot is. Anyone need any help? I looked it up on the internet and I came up with this. This is from XKCD. It still doesn't really help, that's not what it is. What we're looking at is the actual distribution of the entire world ranking list, the top 1,000 universities in the world. All of these plots are the 13 elements that are made up, that make up the ranking, so every individual performance indicator, and the colored bars are showing the distribution of scores. So for each of our elements of rankings, we can see the global distribution of the score, and the line in the middle is the median. And what we can see, the dots are the top 10 universities in the world. So we can immediately start drawing lessons from the characteristics of the world's best universities. First observation, they're really, really rich. That's research income per faculty and total income per faculty. Okay, we can't all be really, really rich. What else is significant? Well, that wealth turns into talent, which turns into extremely influential research. The purple column there is citation impact, and you can see a cluster at the very top of the citation impact element, and a really healthy doctorate to bachelor ratio. And that translates into global recognition. This is the reputation survey scores from the rankings. So you can see they're clustered among at the top. They all enjoy incredible prestige in that survey of 10,000 academics a year that we produce. But for me, this element that's crucial is this international outlook. They're very, very international. They rely on international talent faculty-wise. They rely on international talent student-wise. And just a really sneaky peek at data I've never revealed before. This is Bournemouth. The black dot is Bournemouth University. So okay, you haven't got the wealth. You don't have the multi-billion-pound endowment that Stanford has. You don't charge £50,000 tuition fees like Duke does. But one thing that you do have, which I think is really, really exciting and really encouraging and gives us a sense of the optimism and the enthusiasm here, you do very, very well against the world averages on internationalization. Now, partly that's a UK element. The UK is an international system. The UK is one of the most international systems in the world, which is a fantastic attribute. But I also think it's a Bournemouth story that you do very, very well above international averages on all elements, but in particular you can see an outlier there on your international faculty, which I think is a fantastic story for your research base. It's a fantastic story for your student experience in terms of the exposure to different views, different cultures, different nationalities. I've taken a lot of your time already. I know this is a celebration, so I don't want to make it into a lecture. I just wanted to end on a couple of key pointers. One is this sense that Sanal has already been very, very clear on, that the future, I think, of global higher education, the battleground will be internationalization. We've seen massive investment in universities all across the world, particularly in East Asia, China, South Korea, Singapore, in building capacity and expanding their research. What they're now doing is internationalizing quickly, and I think the last elements for China's success, for example, will be the battle for international talent. And you know, they say that you can tell a lot when journalists are supposed to be neutral and balanced. You can betray a few ideas about a journalist's opinions by the choice of photographs they sometimes use in their publications. So just in terms of reflecting on the future, I just wanted to highlight a comment from Theresa May, our wonderful Prime Minister. We do have an issue around Britain being open to the world. I think Bournemouth and the British university system have to keep championing internationalization, keep making the case that students are welcome, that students will get a good experience, that will support them through the visa process, that we still offer fantastic opportunities. There is a perception that we need to change. I hope the general election will soften some of the anti-immigration rhetoric, will soften some of the positions on using students as a political pawn and using students to draw down on international net migration figures. But we have a similar situation in terms of changing global world. Another world leader is sending out some interesting messages about whether America, the world's most popular destination for international students, whether America is open. And we saw the first evidence very recently on a study that says actually acceptances to American universities from international students are falling. So Britain and America, two of the greatest nations for international higher education are sending out these extraordinary messages. So there is a huge challenge, and there is a case that universities here have to redouble their efforts. Hans de Witt is an expert on internationalization. He runs Boston College's Center for International Higher Education. He talked about the fact that despite this growing populism in America, this growing populism in Britain, this anti-immigration, protectionist rhetoric that we're seeing, the rest of the world isn't going along with it. It's not a domino effect. He said internationalization is not dead. It might be accelerating and undergoing profound changes in response to Brexit and Trump. The US and the UK may be the most affected by the current political climate, but the revolution in internationalization will come from other parts of the world. So I mentioned my choice of pictures. In contrast to Trump, in contrast to May, I thought it was worth showing you this angelic photograph of Justin Trudeau that's sending out these incredibly powerful messages of welcome, of openness, of positive attitudes to immigration and talent. And then probably the cheesiest photograph of all, Emmanuel Macron giving you a wink there. His appeal directly to academics post-Trump's rejection of the Paris Climate Agreement is an extraordinary sign that the battle for talent is fierce, the battle for talent is truly globalizing, and I think British universities have to fight extra hard and work tirelessly, as BU has done, and as you all here are doing, to keep the message that Britain is open to talent, and from students and academics. And I think I've taken up enough of your time, so thank you very much indeed. Cheers.